Thanks for tuning in to another episode of From Funding to Fame, where we interview the founders and funders currently raising capital on FrontFundr, as well as experts in the private capital markets. I'm your host, Trieste Redding, the head of campaigns at FrontFundr, and I'm excited to introduce more Canadians to equity crowdfunding. This podcast episode features conversations about a business's current operations and future plans, and as a result, may contain forward-looking information. There can be no assurance that forward-looking information will prove to be accurate, as actual results and future events could differ materially from those anticipated in such statements. Listeners should not place undue reliance on forward-looking information. Today, we are here with the founder and CEO of Hover, Harrison Ahmet. Hover is an innovative rideshare startup set to revolutionize the Toronto mobility and transport scene with its unique membership model for drivers, allowing them to take home 100% of the fares they earn. This groundbreaking approach addresses the number one issue in the rideshare industry today: low pay for drivers. Not only does it empower drivers, but it also ensures riders pay less, fostering a more equitable ecosystem in the rideshare industry. Today, we are here with the founder and CEO of Expedier, Kingsley Madu. Expedier is the world's first global money app designed to help millions of people manage their finances and build credit simultaneously. With a unique multi-channel credit building approach for both individuals and businesses, Expedier has achieved impressive organic growth. Since launching in 2020, Expedier has been listed among Canada's top 10 fastest-growing fintech platforms. Here are some highlights. User growth has surged by 50 to 60%, driving transaction volume up by over 4,000% to over $25 million in organic transaction volume growth in 3 years. They've kept customer acquisition costs below $10 and project reaching 200,000 monthly users in 3 years' time. Expedier also stands out by offering up to 5 credit building channels for individuals and supporting credit building channels for businesses, which most competitors in the market don't provide. Hi, Kingsley. Thanks so much for being here today. Welcome to From Funding to Fame. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure and a delight to be on here with you also. Thank you again for having me.
We're so excited to have you as a guest today, learn a little bit more about yourself as well as Expedier. So perhaps to kick things off, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what your career has looked like so far?
That's a big question, but yeah, thank you again for asking that. Well, my name's Kingsley Madu, as been said. Um, I've had the humbling experience of living in lots of places. Actually, Google would say that I've lived in 15 different nations globally,
Wow.
right? From the US, Far East Asia, India, Middle East, lots of places across Africa, you name it, right? Kind of like been there, done that kind of guy. Um, in all, I've worked for several Fortune 500 entities, corporations globally, leading technology globally across those organizations, right? Um, I've kind of like gone through the ladder from when I was just an intern and grew up to becoming a regional manager, managing operations across 5 countries at one time. It involved a lot of traveling, right? And which is why I ended up traveling globally around the world, right? Just doing what I love how to do best, which essentially is deploying technology to problems, right? Finding technological innovative solutions to whatever problem that we're facing, right? So I also have an MBA in finance as well. I have an executive degree from Wharton as well, all around finance and all of that. So I kind of like stemmed myself hard into technology, finance, hence financial technology, hence fintech, and hence Expedia, right?
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible background. I can't believe you've lived in that many countries. That's just amazing to learn about the world that way. That's fascinating.
Yeah, first-hand experience, really, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice to see kind of how your background leading technology teams, finance really blends itself so well to obviously Expedia. So maybe what you can do next is share us really a little bit about Expedia's work and kind of that defining moment that you had where you're like, hey, there's a problem here that I can solve.
Yes, so having lived across the world, right, essentially, I thought I had seen it all and I thought I had my acts all put together. So Just to make things a little bit easier, my wife and I decided, you know what, let's go back to North America. And we chose Canada first, precisely. And so in my head, I'm like, I've seen it all, I've been there, nothing could go wrong, right? Like, how hard can it be? So let's move. Wale. And then we landed and it wasn't all rosy at all, right? Right at the airport, my ride hailing app stopped working because it required a local credit card, which, hello, I just landed. I don't have one.
Yeah.
We finally managed to leave the airport and get to the hotel. And the hotel said the same thing. We cannot honor your reservation because you do not have a local card on file. We had to pay cash, right? And then we could not rent a car for the same reason, and we could not rent a house for the same reason. We managed to find our way around. And then when we eventually opened our first bank account, because having lived across the world, you tend to open bank accounts anywhere you go and you have some funds in there, right? So I logged on to one of my accounts and I say, hey, help move some funds from on here to my here, right? And they locked the account. They essentially locked it out. I'm like, okay, why? So when I spoke to the bank, they said to me, well, you haven't really moved money there before. So we thought it was suspicious transaction. So we locked your account. You have to come back to the branch. Luckily, this bank was in the US, luckily for me. So I had to drive over to the US just so they can see my face and unlock my account so that I can move money across. And that was if I'm like, no, something isn't quite working. Why am I going through all of this? What have I done? What is actually unique about me, right? And then I figured that it wasn't anything about me. It was just the system. There was some gap that was missing, some solution that was needed. And so I decided, you know what? I'm just going to build Expedier to solve my problem. Bottom line, I just want to solve my own problem. I can't be going through all of this hassle every time. And so leveraging what I've always done, what I know, right? Essentially put the solution together and build it out. And then it was just okay for me. It was just solving my problems. And then friends and folks would hear of it and they tell me, don't you think we also have this problem? Like, I don't know, you never told me, right? And then, as they say, the rest is history. Voila, Expedia of today with almost 20,000 users on board, right? And growing in leaps and bounds. So that
Wow,
was
that's
aha moment.
amazing. I really appreciate you sharing your personal story there, and I cannot imagine the frustration of, to your point, coming to a new country and just it's so difficult to really get started, and it's a problem that so many people face. And as you mentioned, as soon as kind of you built the solution, people were already like, well, I could use this too. So what was that process like of really finding those initial customers in kind of the early days? It sounds like people were really just needing this solution desperately.
Right. So just backtracking a little bit, when friends and family started hearing about it and they wanted me to open it up, I wasn't quite sure. So what I did was our MVP was built out of Google Form. And then we had this one user who was really like so pressed and they were reaching out to say, look, I'm gonna use this Google Form. Just send me the link. Right. And then we shared it with them and they used it and it worked. I'm like, okay. I was even surprised myself, like, okay, this actually worked, right? And then they told their friend, and their friend told their friend, and their friend told their friend. And within the first month of launch, we had about 45 users. And that was when I realized that, look, there's something here, right? This is really beyond myself. Let's really go out and do this, right? And then that's when we started to build our first web app. And then from the web app, we saw tremendous growth, even though it was a clunky web app, folks were still happy to use it. And then we decided to move on to the mobile app that we have today. Yeah, but
That's amazing. No, that leads in well to my next question. I was going to ask about some of those kind of initial hurdles that you had faced. A startup, the process is never linear, and it sounds like you had some great kind of solutions in the interim, Google Forms, getting that MVP ready. So yeah, what were some of those initial hurdles that you experienced kind of bringing this to market?
it was huge. Like, okay, so first off, because we're a financial platform, right? We first had to walk through the regulation, right?
Yeah.
Get licensing and all of that. And that was one hurdle all by itself. And then the second was convincing the banks to work with us, right? Like, you're high risk. Why should we work with you? Like, you're new to the game. How are we even sure you know what you're doing? And this will not blow up in our faces. We don't want bad press, right? It was really hard convincing the banks to work with us. Like, that was one of the biggest issues we had to deal with, right? And then for sure as well, growing past that first word of market level users, right, to
Mhm.
really growing in big numbers was the biggest challenge. And that was another big challenge. And that was because we were bootstrapping,
Yeah.
right? We were bootstrapping. Okay, so another issue that we also faced was, I remember clearly when I was going to start Expedia, I reached out to friends and say, look, this is becoming a big thing, and I would love you all to join me. Let's build it all together. I think there were about 7 of them, and right there on the call, 6 of them declined. But only one person said, you know what, I will do this with you, right?
Yeah.
Today he's our co-founder and CTO, a great brother and a friend, Michael Obembe, right? We can't do without him. Like, he's been like, I don't know what to say. Anyways, so that alone was another hurdle that we had to deal with. And then with just the two of us, we bootstrapped the living daylight out of Expedia, working multiple jobs, shifts, morning, night, evening, and still building and selling and marketing and
Yeah.
growing Expedia. It was uneasy indeed lies the hair that wears the crown. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
But looking back today, we have no regrets, right? With each issue that we've had to deal with each hurdle, we've learned a lot. We've grown, we've managed to find ways around it, right? And now today, not only do we have the banks more than happy to work with us, we have internationally recognized financial institutions partnering with us, right? Growing with us. So we've come from, and that's what I usually tell folks, like, look, there will be those hurdles, but your grit and determination and resilience to overcome them, it's what's going to tell your story eventually. And that's really the story of Expedia, that resilience to beat every odd.
That's incredible. There's really nothing like the entrepreneurial journey, and you have lived it firsthand. So it's amazing to hear about that and the resilience and grit needed there. So appreciate you sharing that. And I know we've touched so far on the problem. Really, the financial system is failing to meet the needs of so many. It's very fragmented, and it's particularly impacting new immigrants.
Yep.
Um, so with that, how is it that Expedia is managing to solve this problem in a way that hasn't been done so far to best be able to serve these underserved individuals across the world?
Correct. So depending on who you ask, the World Bank estimates that there are about almost 400 million people who needs a similar solution like Expedia globally, right? In the US alone, statistics has it that about, well, not America, statistics has it about 100 million people need a similar solution. Like 100 million people are underserved or underbanked, right? Primarily driven by the existing credit system, right? The financial institutions rely on the credit system to validate and offer service to pretty much everybody, right? And the way that model works today is that the model expects anybody to start building credit history at 18, when they get their first credit card, right?
Yeah.
Start building their history. So say by the time they are 25 and above, they build sufficient history. So the financial institutions, quote unquote, knows them and has de-risked them over time, right? Flip the coin. The average immigrant is about 30 years old, right? And so when they hit the system tries to check their credit history, which is non-existent. So how can you be 30 years old and you don't have a credit history? That already is high risk to the financial system, right? That already it's like saying, no, you must be fraudulent. Where have you been living at? Because that credit decisioning system does not have room for folks who were not born in North America.
Hmm.
right? It assumes that everybody starts building credit at 18, bottom line, right? And so once it meets that, it flags those as high risk, and nobody wants to talk to you once you're high risk because the financial institutions are built to be risk averse, right? So nobody wants to talk to you, nobody wants to bank with you. And so you find a group of folks who are severely underserved and underbanked, right? The second thing is that the existing financial models also was not built with immigration in mind as at the time it was developed, right? But hey, the new frontier are immigrants. We know that, right? And so, but that system, that model is slow to adjust, to adopt, right? And to change to serving the needs of these people. So it adopted a one heart fits all. This is what we
Mhm.
have. You have to find a way to fit yourself into that mode, right? But that isn't a perfect fit for the average immigrant because the average immigrant still has family ties back home. Mhm. And before they immigrated, they had a financial life, they had financial history, they had banking, they had funds back home, right? And they wouldn't want to lose that. So that's essentially what we've realized. Again, that was my problem, right? So essentially used myself as the ideal user here, and I built that solution to solve my needs. How does it do that? Number one, it gives me access to all of my banking and financial records anywhere in the world that I have been. Bottom line, right? Now, with that access, I can easily move my funds to North America on demand and spend them, use them to support my lifestyle. So that's the second bit. The third bit is that we then layer on the accounts, bank accounts, we layer on the cards on it to make it even easier to spend that money, be it online or in store, right? And then the fourth is that as users transact like their everyday banking, we're able to translate that to credit building opportunities. First, to establish that history, their credit history, and then to build on and enhance their credit history. The final piece, which will be launching sometime this year, is that even before the immigrant comes onto the scene, we want to extract their existing financial information, translate it to the North American credit history standards, and feed it to the system, such that on arrival, the system already has their details, has their information, and can make better decision around them. And
It's
that is
amazing.
the financial system of tomorrow, bottom line, and the banks
Wow. Great overview. Really appreciate you kind of giving that detailed description of how it works. It makes so much sense as a needed solution for so many people. And I can't wait for kind of the last piece of the puzzle to come into place there, really to set people up for success upon arrival. But within that, you mentioned a couple numbers as well. How many people kind of in North America need this system? I believe you mentioned 100 million, and kind of how many people globally. So, would love to hear a little bit more about the market opportunity that exists for Expedia, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about your plan of kind of which markets you're tackling first and why.
The market opportunity is huge, as I've mentioned, right? And that's because as of today, globally, there are almost 400 million folks and about 100 million in North America. But guess what? That number is steadily on the rise, and it's not going to be shrinking anytime soon. Hello, climate change is
Hmm.
driving immigration. Hello, regional wars it's also driving immigration to North America and Europe and other parts of the world. So it's not going to stop, right? So the market keeps growing and becoming large, right? Um, there's an entity that's just doing one piece of what Expedia is doing today in the US, and in the last 8 years or so, they become unicorn. Just like solving just one puzzle of the equation that Expedia is solving, right? So for us, we really want to take a big chunk of that pie. We're greedy and aggressive, right? We've got our eyes on the North American space first, right? We've recently launched in the US as well and growing that in numbers, right? We have an aggressive plan to grow our user base to 100,000 before the end of the year, right? And that's just been modest, honestly, because we believe that we can grow that number easily to 200,000. In Canada alone, there are 5 million people who rent their homes today who have to rent, right? Now, one of the products that we're launching pretty soon is the ability to build credit from rentals. So as they rent their house and pay their rent, they can further build and enhance their credit, right? And that's just 5 million users waiting for the uptick. So we strongly believe that in the next few years, we should be hitting that tens of millions of users as we constantly ramp up and grow our user base. And then once we have conquered North America, hey, the rest of the world is up for grabs, right?
World is your oyster.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, that it makes so much sense. Tackling the rental market. I mean, you have to pay your rent every month. If you've got a strong history of that, why shouldn't it count towards your credit rating? So stuff like that, it's so common sense, and it's great to see that a company like yours is really tackling that with a solution that can help so many.
Yep.
For those who are listening today as well, you've kind of given a glimpse at some of the different products and services that you have. So maybe you can provide a bit of that overview and walk us through how the company makes money.
For sure. So one of the biggest things that we offer is the global accounts, global bank accounts, right?
Yep.
So that's really to say, okay, I'll share an experience. Sometime last year, I was in the US, in New York, and on arrival, I just opened up my app and I just requested for a bank account, a USD bank account, and voila, it generated one in minutes for me. And then I moved some funds from my CAD banking to the USD account that I just opened, and it was instant as well. And then I loaded some of that funds onto the USD card that I had, that the app also issued to me on demand, and then loaded the card on Uber. And within minutes of waiting for my luggage, I was set up and ready to leave the airport. Just like that, the convenience of that.
Yep.
That's one of the biggest things that we offer, right? The ease to get these global accounts and easily move money around, aka remittance, right? And then we've got the cards as well to make even further make it easy. And then ultimately we have the credit building options as well on the app, right? Right. So all of those are just fantastic products that we have on the app as of today. How do we make money? Well, each of those options that I've just mentioned are ways for us to make money. We have a multi-stream revenue approach, right? From transaction fees per transaction, right? From arbitrage fees when users use the cards, right? From exchange rates, right? Margins, from even just everyday transactions and just the things that we charge for. But then ultimately, where we are headed with that is soon we would aggregate all of our offering into subscriptions, right? And users could take up subscriptions based on their interest, right? So let's say I only need accounts, right? I don't need the other things that you offer. That's fine, right? Pick whatever works for you and then get on that, right? Um, I mean, I don't want to divulge some of our numbers, but we've steadily seen our revenue per user growing, right? In the last 1 year alone, that number has grown by almost 200%.
Yeah, amazing. There's probably a great opportunity for cross-selling, I would imagine as well, right? You get someone in and
Exactly.
then the other
Yep.
products and
Yep.
services.
Yep. Right now, we have a revenue run rate of about $800,000, nearing that 1 million mark.
Wow.
Yeah, the $1 million mark.
So there's some incredible numbers for sure. Appreciate you sharing more about those revenue streams. Next thing I wanted to touch on is traction, and I feel like those revenue numbers really lead well into that. You mentioned how many users you've acquired so far, so maybe you can walk us through just some of those significant kind of traction milestones that you've reached, as well as what some of those growth plans are for the future.
Oh, yes. So there are a few key metrics that we look at to ascertain the health of Expedia and our growth, right, and traction. One is the user growth, right? And that has been growing in leaps and bounds, nearing 20K today. And as I mentioned, the plan is to aggressively grow that number to 100,000 by the end of the year. Right now, we are averaging between December and now, we've averaged about 10,000 users. Right. So we want to bring that to about 10,000 users every month going forward. Right. That's the first metric that we look at. The second metric that we look at is our transaction volume, right? How much volume we are processing every month. So in the first year of Expedier, right, our total transaction volume was less than $200,000 in our first year of operation, right? Today, we are doing about 2.5 million every month in transaction volume.
Wow.
And growing. So that's another key metric that we look at, right, for us. Another key metric that we also look at is floats. That's essentially saying how much of our users, how much money our users are leaving in their accounts with us, right? And that's really key for us because it speaks to the level of trust that our users have on the system. It speaks to the level of reliability that it has, right? That number is steadily growing. In the last 1 year alone, it's grown by almost 300% as well, right? And so essentially all of our metrics is really on the upward trend. And then the last metric for us is revenue growth. For sure, we're not, I mean, we're here to make money, right? We're here to make money. And that, as I mentioned earlier, we're nearing that $1 million run rate within the next 12 months, right? That as well has been growing in leaps and bounds. And all of that speaks to the health of the business and the attraction as we continue to scale, right, and grow, right? Yeah, but those are the four key tractions that we measure critically, right? And I've got my eyes laser focused on those because that is really my job at Expedia, making sure those
Yeah.
numbers looking upwards. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, it's incredible. I appreciate you breaking that down for us as well. And I know you've touched on kind of some pockets of areas and plans where you're going to be introducing new products and services. Anything else you want to share on kind of what's next in terms of those growth plans?
Right. So we are gonna be launching Expedia, the remittance part of Expedia, globally within Q1 2025. In fact, Eurozone and the UK will be going live before the end of January. And then we're going to be expanding that across Africa, right? Before the end of Q1. The deal has been signed. We're just slowly building out the applications and what we need to do just to make sure that it's robust as what we already have, right? And then we are also nearing the launch of our innovative credit building solution that's going to just, um, it's going to reshape the industry as it is. And I'll speak a little bit about that. We're not only launching that for retail users, just like you and I, we're launching that for businesses as well. Businesses will have an opportunity to establishing a credit profile for that business. Today, that is non-existent. That solution is non-existent today. We're bringing that mainstream, right? Um, and so that's one big piece for us. We are waiting on some announcements to go live in the next few weeks and days, so I cannot necessarily speak to that yet on this podcast. But those announcements will essentially be announcing our partnerships, right? That we build out over the next few months, right, with some really solid global brands, and that's just going to continue to escalate our growth and growth. Help us to scale out at large, right? Yeah, so we see 2025 as our year of growth, right? We've spent the last 4 years building this product. We've spent the last 4 years validating the product, right? And now there's only one thing left: grow, grow, grow till you become a formidable global brand.
That's incredible. Yeah, you found product market fit. Now it's really about expanding that. And it sounds like there are some huge announcements coming up this quarter and in particular within the next few weeks. So definitely recommend everyone listening, stay tuned, keep an eye out for those big updates. It sounds like incredible plans there. And just, we've had a chance to learn more about the business, which is fantastic. And, you touched on earlier kind of the challenges of that entrepreneurial journey that come up, and it's always amazing having a chance to chat with founders like yourself and learn more about that. So would love to shift the focus a little bit to your role as, co-founder and CEO, and chat through kind of your leadership style, because that obviously plays such a pivotal success in the company's growth. So maybe you could share a little bit more about your philosophy on leadership and how you bring that sense of motivation to the team.
Sure, happy to share those as well. Thank you for asking that brilliant question. Um, One of the things I've had to do at Expedia is essentially recognize that, and I'm just be honest with you here. The business can only grow as far as I grow. Bottom line, I'm the number one limiting factor. It's not the employees, it's not the technology, it's not the bank institutions, it's me, really, right? And so I've had to significantly upskill and continue to upskill, bottom line, right? I've had to learn how to be a leader and still learning every day how to be a leader. Heck, I read a lot on leadership. I attend webinars. I just continue to grow my mindset, right? Because I
Yeah.
also need mindset to support our growth and where we are headed eventually, right? Now, as part of that learning, the simplest way I explain my leadership is that I bring on inspirational leadership to everything I do. And there's a phrase I use to describe that. I always strive to create the most enabling atmosphere that allows everybody to do their best job. Bottom line. It's my job to create that enabling atmosphere. So I am Chief Enabling Officer. That's the first. And then how I do that, it's by being the Chief Errand Officer. In other words, it's my job to serve the team so they can do their best job. They're not here to serve me. When
Mm.
I remove their blockers, when I solve their problems, when I help them at their levels, different levels, then they are further empowered to do what they need to do, right? And so everybody has a voice, right? Everybody is expected and empowered to deliver and to own their piece of work. So essentially, everybody is a mini CEO at Expedier, to be honest, right? That
Mm.
level of ownership is contagious. Like you need to see our staff. It's really contagious, and um, it's been something that myself and my co-founder Michael decided early on to say, this is what we want to do. This is how we want to build Expedia, and so far it's been working tremendously for us.
Wow. Incredible. I think it's a really lovely philosophy that you have, and it's so important as the leader to really have that self-awareness and reflection of oneself to go, hey, I really need to gain the skills that I need to grow and be able to take this company to new heights. And I feel like not enough people really spend the time to take stock of that and improve their own skills. And it's great to hear that that's, such an important part for yourself, and really then enables you to, as you said, create that enablement environment and really support the team wherever you can. So really appreciate you sharing your insights on the philosophy there.
Thank you.
Now, you've told some amazing stories so far and highlighted how your journey has really led into, the solution that you've created. Across the journey, has there been like a favorite moment that stood out to you, or maybe a defining moment where you really felt things start to change that comes to mind?
A lot, a lot. But I'm just gonna speak to one that happened. That was early last year, right? Last year was really a pivotal year for us, to be honest. We were featured in lots of reputable media outlets out there, right? We were receiving invitation to all kinds of events. Awards were pouring in, and it was just sometimes you could feel a little bit overwhelming. I want to say it right, but you gotta do what you have to do.
Yeah.
Um, and then it dawned on me that we are growing, right, faster than we had planned for. And so um, I had to step back and look inwards to figure out, do we have the structure to support this growth? Because if we don't and we continue to grow at this pace, we're just going to tumble on our own weight, we're going to come crashing on our own weight, right? And so, rather opposite of uh, everyday wisdom, I decided to put everything on hold, essentially post everything. So, you know what? Let's first build our structure, right? Let's develop our human resources. Let's find our hiring processes. Let's really build the framework for this company, right? And that essentially set us back almost 8 months, right? Because we placed a pause on everything, on development, on product, on marketing. We just had to take a several steps back to say, you know what, hold on, let's do what we have to do. Let's sanitize this house. And then when we're ready that we've got the right structure in place, then we can please scale. And today, again, I have no regrets taking that decision. We step out of that with tremendous speed, with clarity, and with a team that was super dedicated to the vision. Because we made that vision simple to understand, very clear to everybody,
Yeah.
right? And that stemmed from that single decision to just say, you know what, let's take a step back and build our foundational structure for this skyscraper that we're building, right?
Yeah.
So it was really a tough period, to be honest. It wasn't easy. Never mind, I'm smiling and I'm saying it as though it was some walk in the park. It wasn't at all. But so most times, what validates your decision are the results that come out of it eventually, right? And because of the
Mm.
results that we're seeing now, we knew that we made the right choice.
Fantastic. Well, it's as you mentioned, building that foundation is so important, especially if you're planning on building a skyscraper. So it sounds like it was a great decision, and really, I think what you highlighted well there, and in talking about your leadership, is really having those moments of reflection and being able to look strategically at where you need to be now for the long term. And that can be very difficult, especially when it is so kind of chaotic being an entrepreneur and you're
No.
wearing so many hats and you're juggling so much. So, like, how do you balance that? And when you have those moments of downtime, like, what do you do to find those pockets of reflection? Is there anything that you love to do that kind of helps put yourself in that space to be able to think as, inwardly as that?
So I do a few things, and again, I learned that from my leadership growth mindset and things I do just to kind of keep doing right. But one thing I've come to understand is that as an entrepreneur, I there has to be a different take to work-life balance.
Mhm.
And for me, I'm gonna say something that is strange, but I will explain. There isn't work-life balance in that sense, but I will explain what I mean.
Yeah.
What I meant by that is I enjoy the work that I do to the point that it isn't work, it is fun,
Mm.
right? And so I have that balance inherently built into it because I enjoy it. It is fun. I'm not looking to quit from exhaustion because I'm tired and this is boring and I just need to go do something else. It's fun and I can do it all day long, right? And part of doing that all day long, it's also having sufficient time to reflect, right? And so I go on walks regularly. That's my thing, right? I go
Yeah.
on walks, and that allows me to review the days, the weeks, the months past, and also strategically think for the future, right? And those works are part of my everyday routine and part of my job at Expedier. Like it's part of my
Yeah.
task at Expedier. Right? It's part of my task at Expedier. So I mean, it's been crazy, I must say. For example, up until late last year, I had three jobs, right? And because we were bootstrapping Expedia, right? And we had to pay the bills. We also had to take care of our families and our homes, right? And we still had to make out the time to continue building this solution and scaling it, right? So it wasn't easy, but then because you love what you're doing, because you know you're doing the right thing, and because you just have that insatiable passion for what you're doing, you enjoy it. So for
Yeah.
me, it's been mostly a great ride, despite all the blues every morning. You wake up, you shake it off, let's go. It's another fun day.
Gotta love what you do. That's fantastic, and I think, yeah, incorporating walks into the routine is great, getting back into nature, taking that time to reflect. I know it's something that I kind of incorporate into my routine as well, and I think we're hearing more and more, in the business world of even walking meetings as a concept, taking that
Yep,
time to really, meet with others, talk about business, get some exercise, clear your head, do it all at the same time. So I can imagine that that is a great way to kind of keep things going, propel you forward, and as you said, if you're passionate about it, you never work a day in your life.
you enjoy what you do and it's fun, really. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Now, I know the reason we're here, you are raising capital, you're raising capital on FrontFundr, so would love if we could hear a little bit more about what your experience has been raising capital so far, as
Mhm.
well as, some of the goals with this round of community capital through FrontFundr that you're currently raising as well.
Yep. Well, thank you for that beautiful question. And yes, we are raising on FrontFundr. So as I mentioned, we've had to uh, bootstrap Expedia from beginning, right? And I have no regrets doing that. Honestly, I would even do that again and again and again because I've learned a lot from bootstrapping, right? And when I had no reason to continue, we've essentially continued, right? And I've also learned the quicker, faster way to hitting revenue faster because you're bootstrapping and you just have to figure things out faster, right? And so, but it's been also a great opportunity for us to get on FrontFundr and offer our users, right, the opportunity to invest in Expedia, right? When we were unable to raise institutional funding, we decided to be creative. And the result has been amazing. Earlier on, we spoke about product market fit. That's one way that I define that. When your own users are willing to invest in the product, that is the ultimate product market fit there, right? And so from our users right now, we've raised almost $500,000 thanks to FrontFundr as well for the support and all of that. Um, we are about 62% or thereabout goal met already on FrontFundr. And in the next few weeks, we're just going to be wrapping things up. The goal is just to raise $750,000 at this round. Uh, we have several warrants signed with big name financial institutions that I'm not able to disclose right now. And so once we close this round, we want to go on straight to our Series A, so that we can maximize those warrants, right? And get big named brands on our books, right? But so far so good. It's been tremendous. We've really been hitting those goals and milestones with our fundraising.
It's
And
fantastic. Well,
thanks to our users for believing in us. Yep.
absolutely. No, congratulations on the success so far. And we often do talk about crowdfunding as, kind of community capital. It's that opportunity to raise from your community as a business. But I really like how you describe that as being kind of the ultimate test of product market fit. I think that's such a great way of looking at that because not only are your users buying the product or service, but they are so bought in on the vision of the company that they're also wanting to become co-owners on the journey. And there's no kind of statement more impactful than that, which is incredible. Absolutely. Well, we're almost up on time today as we're looking to wrap things up. I've two final questions for you. You've obviously had an incredible journey throughout your career. You've worked and lived across the world, worked for Fortune 500 companies. You know, you've started your own company. What's one quote or piece of advice you've received that's guided you along your entrepreneurial journey?
I've received a lot, but I'm just going to speak to a few of them, right? The big, the one that really gets me up every day, every morning is consider every day as day one. So for us, particularly for me at Expedier, every day is day one. It doesn't mean I'm rebuilding, but it means that, heck, we haven't even started. This is day one for us, right? There's still a lot more ahead. There's still a lot more growth. There's still a lot more to build. There's still a lot more grounds to conquer. So every day is day one. Alongside with that is that statement helps helps me in particular stay in check and be humble, because if every day is day one for you, then you've not even started, right?
Hmm.
I was at a podcast sometime late last year, and the I was asked this question: How would you ever compete with global brands that are celebrating 100 years anniversary and all of that? And I said, well, despite their celebrating 100 years, which is great, there was also a day that was their day one. Everybody always has a day one. And so for us, we not only have a day one, but we always look to every day as our day one, because there's a lot more that we can be doing, right? And secondly, it's that we've not come this far to only come this far. We've come this far to continue going, right? And come rain, come shine, we're here, bottom line, right? And we'll continue to build that solution for the future, right? Until Apple came to the scene, nobody knew that smartphones as they are today could be a thing. It took just one man with the vision and the guts to do it. And today, the rest is history. And for us, that's the same thing we believe. We believe that the products we're building is going to redefine financial landscape for the future, right? It's going to shape the way people bank, people transact, people do stuff, people build credit. We're revolutionizing all of that. And that's why we stay humble, we stay nimble. Every day is day one for us.
Amazing. There are so many great tidbits from our conversation today that I feel like will help entrepreneurs on their own journey, will resonate with just business leaders and investors as well. So really appreciate you sharing your insights. As we wrap things up, if you could leave investors listening today with three things to take away about Expedia, what would they be?
Well, for our investors, I want to say that you've got um, a diehard set of founders, myself and my co-founder, right? Resilience defined. So if you're looking for the place to put your money and know that yes, these folks are gonna deliver on that, then you found it, right? That's that. Number two is that even if that doesn't happen, we're still grateful and thankful for the opportunities and the advice that we get and the support from the community and investors generally, right? And we continue to lean on that to grow and to do what we have to do. And then lastly, I'm going to say that the best is yet to come, right? Particularly with some of the announcements that we are going to be doing in the next few days and months, right? And launching even further in our fundraising. We are that confident that come 2025 and beyond, this is gonna be a household name, a brand that people want to identify with, right? There are days when you're small, but then there are also days when people like, I used to know those guys, they were nobody before, but now they're everywhere, right? And that's essentially gonna be our story, right? But yes, we hope you join us for the ride, right? We're looking for investors that that's going to help us scale really and grow. That's it for us, right? Not just the money, but that's got the network, right? That we can leverage, right? That's got the advice that we can use, right? That's got the industry experience that we can lean on, right? Because for us, we're at that point where we just need to grow this thing to high heavens and back.
Well, incredible. As you said, the best is yet to come for Expedier, and we look forward to some big announcements over the next couple weeks. So, as I mentioned earlier, for anyone listening, keep your eyes glued to the campaign page in the updates section for hopefully some big announcements to come. And Kingsley, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your insights. It was lovely having you on as a guest. And yeah, to those who do want to learn more, you can do so at frontfundr.com/Expedier. There's some great knowledge info about the company. There's perks on the campaign page, lots of exciting things for investors to check out. And Kingsley, thank you again so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm more than grateful to be here. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you for the opportunity. And to our users, thank you. We appreciate you. From the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you for not only believing in us when we had just a Google form, but for going on to validate everything we've done. So thank you. We can't be here without you all.
For anyone new to the podcast, FrontFundr is Canada's leading equity crowdfunding platform, enabling all Canadians to invest in the most exciting startups and growth stage companies, something that was previously only available to the 1%. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter so you can have your questions answered in an upcoming episode. This podcast episode is for informational purposes only and should not constitute financial advice. Investors should conduct their own due diligence on any investment they may be considering on FrontFundr. For details of any offering listed on FrontFundr, refer to the offering document on their campaign page at www.frontfundr.com.